live again with our, I guess not our inaugural because we're still within our first year, but we have just gotten through the first 2017 deer season as a podcast and as a group of hunt buddies, and we thought of no one better to help us recap the whole deer season than having our buddy Chris. Let's call him Chris the Wildlife Biologist from now on.
Like it.
Maybe Chris. Chris would.
I'm gonna mull over this, but continue.
Chris would probably like to introduce himself, but henceforth you're just Chris the Wildlife Biologist now. You're just Chris, the smart dude we know about, the smart dude we know who knows a lot about deer, who went to college for deer. Is that what sometimes you feel like?
Things.
Like, is that like when you were going, you were like, I'm going to college for deer?
Sometimes we get pigeonholed into deer biologists, but we do a lot of other animals as well, more habitat stuff for the whole ecosystem as opposed to just deer. But we do know a lot about deer.
So
this being Texas, it's kind of a prerequisite for the job.
Yeah. I would imagine you know all things living, both mammal and grass. So I heard that after you guys, so like last time we were on the you were on the podcast, we chatted about, so just so anybody who is new to the podcast does not know Chris is the wildlife biologist for both Old Sabine River Bottom and Lake Tawakoni, which is a personal favorite of this podcast to go and hunt. So after we had talked and you guys had not quite yet done the little burn, and then I guess what is that, the east side?
Yeah, it'd be the eastern side, right?
Right? Is it the eastern side that you guys?
Yeah, the Pawnee Inlet unit.
Mm-hmm. The Pawnee Inlet on the eastern side of that you burned. But then I heard, because we were out duck hunting and deer hunting today, and we got to meet a very good friend, Gary Miller, who is the Texas game warden for that area. And I was chatting with him. I was like, I get to talk to Chris today. And he was like, oh, man, Chris is a great guy. And he said you guys went back in and planted some native grasses a couple weeks later, right?
That's correct. We got about 30 acres of the 120 we plan on doing. Actually going back tomorrow, taking the tractor and the seeder back out there. And we're going to try and finish up in the next couple weeks planting some native grasses.
So for an ignorant boy like myself, so like planting native grasses like that, like what does that do for a habitat and like restoring it and bringing it back? Like what is that kind of, what's the result of you guys doing that work?
Well, it's a lot better than the King Ranch blue stem and other exotic invasives we have out there. Johnson grass, we'll continually spray those, but basically just trying to restore it to what it was before we started messing with it.
Okay.
We get a lot of comments from people around Tawakoni about how they used to have quail. Well, we're not the only ones to blame with the invasive exotics, but this is a small step in the right direction. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying we'll get quail back, but this is the kind of habitat that they're accustomed to.
Yeah,
so we're going to try and give that a shot. Just make the ecosystem better for all sorts of species, songbirds, and it'll be fawning cover for deer and stuff along those lines.
So it is amazing though it's just one step at a time though. You're definitely not going to get quail back if you don't do anything. If you do one thing that's like a step in the right direction, does that mean you're going to be able to go hunt quail next year? No, but maybe in 5 or 10 years, maybe 15 years, but still, it's a step in that direction.
Nothing in wildlife biology is an immediate response, with the exception of prescribed burning.
Yeah.
Everything takes time, and so when we're talking about this habitat restoration, we're talking 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
It's the long con of things. It's not a
exactly.
It's not a quick turnaround.
So Cam, you go.
Well, I was just gonna say about the quail thing. So my dad grew up in Edgewood, East Texas, obviously. And he talks about how they, used to go walk out and hunt quail. And growing up out here, I've never hunted quail before because you got to go way west for it or whatever. Even that's been deteriorating. But I was at Dallas Safari Club convention last year, and I think Texas Tech and UNT both had booths set up for a bunch of quail research. And so I went to that, and then I went down to Matagorda Island to camp out, and I saw all kinds of quail down there. And I just thought it was really cool because, hadn't ever really heard them or, seen a real covey of quail, and I did down there. And
right.
So just kind of, it just kind of felt like, fruits of your labor paying off, and I thought it was really, really slick.
Yeah, it's we've been stopped by one of our neighbors over there, and said we used to see quail all the time. What happened? So it's an issue of the habitat decreasing. I mean, what do you see in pastures these days? It's all Bermuda grass pastures.
Yeah.
What do you see on fence lines now? Well, people spray them. They don't have the grown-up hedgerows that they used to.
Right. Okay, so that right there drives me crazy because so we have land in Edgewood still, and we inherited it, and my dad is meticulous about keeping the place nice and neat looking, and it's like a constant fight because I want to let the fence rows get growed up, let the hay pastures grow over, let me get some visual barriers going and stuff. And he doesn't comprehend that just because it doesn't look nice and cut, there's a lot of benefit to it. It just drives me crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm the first to admit cleaning a fence row is absolutely terrible, and using chemicals is the best way to keep it clean and easy for maintenance. But as far as wildlife habitat, it's not good.
Yep.
And one big barrier to native grass on the landscape, Bermuda grass grows in just about any condition unless you have a drought. It produces a lot more forage than native grasses, but as soon as there's a drought, we're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's converted their pastures to Bermuda grasses just about, but to convert them back to native grasses, there's a huge cost associated with it. Native grass seed is not cheap.
Right.
And I know across the state there's a push to get more native grass seed on the landscape at a more affordable price, but it's just not happening quick enough for a lot of folks liking.
It never is it? No. Everybody wants everything now. Like now. Do it now. Right now. Go now.
Yeah.
Do it now.
And it's very difficult. We've got a lot of species in East Texas that are native to like Canada, but you can't take those varieties from Canada and make them grow well in East Texas. So they're doing a lot of work, and there's programs through a couple of universities in the state that are trying to make that seed more widely available at a fair price to hopefully encourage a lot of folks to put natives back on the landscape, which
that's always
we're all for with Texas Parks and Wildlife.
That's the key, right? A fair price where you're like, hey, I can't do this for $1 million, but I'll do it for 100, So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I know we have a bunch of questions we wanted to ask you, and I think the first and foremost I want to talk to you about. So, as a group, we've hunted. Personally, myself, I've hunted more on public land this year than I ever have in the past, and I've hunted more in general than I ever have in the past. Someone from our group was on public land every single weekend, every weekend of deer season. And
Wow.
yeah, and not to sound detrimental to the cause, but we did not get anything. So, and we blame that a lot on, we shot some deer on private land, but
I did shoot a pig. Thank you very
you
much.
did shoot a pig. That's right, Cameron. You did shoot a pig, but I believe when I was at the draw hunt at Old Sabine River Bottom, Chris's exact instructions were, here's what you could shoot as far as deer, and if you want to shoot a pig, just step out back.
Yeah.
So as far as a deer season goes, from not a hunter who hunted a bunch and kind of walked away with the experience of learning and growing as a hunter, which is what we did. We took it away as a victory. 100% is that. But most people don't measure that as a success. We totally did. We looked at it as, wow, we learned a whole bunch this year. We became better hunters. We didn't hunt over bait. We didn't have a feeder, which nothing bad about that at all. But if you have not hunted on a piece of public land where you deal with the general public and people walking in and people doing things that you don't even know they're doing. That's the thing. And then having to go to a place that's 1,400 acres and just walking out there and trying to find a place to go hunt based on your own knowledge. We took away a lot of knowledge and a lot of information, and so we think it was a complete success, regardless of the lack of meat that we put in the freezer. But from a biologist perspective, what was your take on the 2017 deer season?
Well, I know it started extremely slow with the hot weather we got. Youth weekend, we had a huge cold snap. I think it was down in the 30s. The youth did not have a lot of luck at the Old Sabine Bottom. That was more due to the thickness of the vegetation and the fact that it takes, just in general, youth a longer time to aim and pull the trigger than it does adults, because they're still learning, and we appreciate that folks take their time, and they don't rush their kids shooting anything. Thank goodness.
No fun winging a deer.
No. And so we, youth season was nice and cold, great conditions. Opening weekend was just horrible. I think it was in the 80s, if not mid 80s.
We were up at Pat
Miserable.
May's.
Mm-hmm. It was hot.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
We were shirtless in hammocks.
Yeah, literally.
I believe it. It was hot. Just really miserable. We had several deer shot Thanksgiving weekend at Old Sabine Bottom. We had decent weather then, and I think we had five archery deer shot and checked in. So there could have been more that they didn't check in. We're not sure what compliance is on that.
Yeah.
The deer check station.
Is there a percentage
of
of compliance?
Abnormal year.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there a percentage of compliance you factor in to those to the numbers,
stats,
to the stats? Yeah.
Not really, because
No.
generally the success is so low on Old
Sure.
Sabine Bottom.
Anybody who's shooting one is like, look at what I did.
Yeah, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
year last year we had, I believe, 2 deer taken with archery equipment. This year it was 10 or 11.
Wow, that's
So it was an abnormal year, and it seems like folks on their first time out just stumbled out there and found a deer, which is incredibly frustrating for
People like us.
Yeah.
Somebody who hunts a lot, yeah.
tons of time out there. So
You know how pissed I'd be if I saw white jeans carrying out a deer.
Yeah. We had somebody walk up through us at Tawakoni wearing, they walked into our setting. We were set up, Cameron and I were set up in this really good spot, and this guy walked in wearing white jeans, looked at us, walked in all the way into our set, and then saw, we kind of whistled at him, and he looked at us and then turned around and walked back out. We were like, what just happened? Just wearing white jeans, like Like, I can almost forgive the guy if he was just like, at least trying.
At least blue jeans, like look like a good old boy. But white jeans,
White
like,
jeans.
That's pretty bad. But
it's real bad.
in the grand scheme of deer vision, wearing white jeans would be better than blue jeans because deer series.
No,
deer
yeah,
blue.
we understand that, but I swear to God, that guy didn't.
I just think, no doubt.
Like, no way.
If you're wearing white jeans going hunting, do you get that? Yeah, that's the thing. Like, that was your choice. Like, you left the house. Like,
You know what? You're not wearing that.
like Chris.
So you mean tell me?
Chris, you understand deer vision better than anybody, and there's no way you're walking out of your house to go deer hunt in a pair of white jeans. I mean, I know you got like 5 sets, right?
Jeans, so
You don't have any white jeans. Huh?
Thank you.
I don't own white jeans. I'm no.
Kind of
You're not
purist
from
like
Quinlan,
that,
are
huh?
you?
So that's really. I mean, I guess that's.
We'll never have anyone on this podcast who wears white jeans.
Yeah, just
I'm gonna throw that
FYI.
out
If you're
there.
listening to
That's all. Now continue. I apologize.
this thing,
We're getting down that rabbit trail now.
Yeah.
It's my
um,
fault. I apologize.
So as far as so you said two deer taken with archery equipment in 2016. I think 11, right? 10 or 11 in 2017.
Something around there. I know every time we check our registration box, it's like a surprise. It's like, oh wow, this actually happened. Interesting.
That's really cool.
What would you attribute
We
that?
did have we had several bucks shot that weekend of Thanksgiving, and I think it's because the rut was late this year by a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Generally it's triggered by photo period, but weather also plays a role in it. And this year, for whatever reason, it was just a couple weeks late and very strange, because normally it's during opening weekend of rifle season we have our rut, or there or shortly after. But this year it was strange. We saw chasing from that weekend all the way until beginning of December.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it was an odd
crazy.
year, very odd year.
Okay. I've got just a plethora of questions I want to ask you. How repetitive is the timing of the rut and those behaviors every year? Because, you hear people talk and it's like, they hunt this one weekend every year and they've got this buck on camera here every year. And, like you're saying, weather has a lot to do with it. Photo period has a lot to do with it. But, I mean, how repetitive are those deer actually to the date, as far as, rut activity, daylight activity, movement, stuff like that?
So as far as peak rut, the rut we talk about as hunters is a little bit different than the rut we talk about as biologists. As biologists, the rut we talk about is when the does are being bred.
Okay.
The rut we talk about as hunters is the chasing phase of the rut.
Mm-hmm.
So that's prior, correct?
Breeding time. Yes, that is prior.
Mm-hmm.
Peak breeding time for deer in my wildlife management area is December 9th through the 11th. That's when the does are being bred, based on some deer breeding chronology studies we've done in the past. So we assume that week before would be the peak of chasing activity. Generally, it holds true. We have several, the majority of our harvest is during that opening weekend of rifle season, the first week in November. First weekend in November, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
That's also when we have a draw hunt, because we are archery only other than the draw hunt. This year, it was, for whatever reason, a little bit late. Deer in the south, there are more factors that play into the timing of the rut than deer up north. Deer up north, it's almost 100, I won't say 100%. it is very largely based on photo period. Deer in the South, we've got a couple more factors playing into it. Photo period still playing a large portion of it. Buck to doe ratio and weather also playing a factor in it. But generally, I'd say the peak rutting activity is within 3 or 4 days of each other every year.
Just swinging back and forth. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like
And they're
very precise, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, a 6 to 8 day swing.
Yeah.
A year. That's minuscule.
Yeah.
And all like like you're saying, all
With
the
all
different
the factors,
that
exactly.
play into that.
Because I've always heard most of it is photo period.
Right.
But knowing that there's other factors
and
down south here, that's interesting.
And it's up north it's largely photo period. Down here, because we do have a little milder climate and longer photo periods than they do up north, there are some other factors that play in, but the main driving force is photo period pretty much everywhere.
As far as just like, so I would think naturally just the fact that, like, just from an idiot's perspective, and that being mine, I would imagine that
You're allowed to speak for the group.
deer have in the north, right? If you're a deer in Minnesota, you have a very tight window,
Yeah.
like nutritionally, right? To like
Yeah.
expound yourself to breed and what would take to breed as many does as possible, which is I can only imagine as a human male, you're the same way as a buck. You just want to hit as many females as you can within that small time frame before it, like when you move from okay it's happening to okay it's over because it's negative 15 degrees outside and you just get such a cold.
Shit got cold.
It got cold real quick, right? Where down here, the fact that it may have been hotter a little later into the season meant that maybe more does and maybe more deer were just bedded down, staying cooler. I mean, like, is that kind of like a valid thought to think about that? As far as maybe if it was a little colder in November, at the 1st of November, it may have shifted back forward 3 or 4 days, right? Or 6 days, or whatever that time frame would have been. But, it's not going to go from November to September, but from very, like, middle to end of November to maybe the middle to the 1st of November. I mean, was that a possibility at all? Or am I just rambling?
You may not see the chasing activity because the does are more active at night. More apt to go nocturnal when it's hot out. I mean, nobody wants to run around in the middle of summer when it's 100 degrees, so we limit our activity to the evening. The does that have put on their winter coats by then, they're moving more in the evening, so we're not seeing them. I mean, largely the pictures we were getting during the traditional rut were either real early in the morning when it's still dark or middle of the night.
Yeah.
And this wasn't just we had terrible season openers for rifle season across the board because of both the weather and then also that late rut timing. My wife and I went to my buddy's ranch in Red River County, and it should have been peak of the rut when we went, and we saw one buck not even interested in chasing or anything like that, and saw several does coming out and no bucks chasing. And I went the next weekend, and it was full on deer chasing everywhere.
Just craziness.
And, yeah, lots of young bucks chasing, which kind of tips you off to it's not the full blown rut yet. And my wife shot a 4.5-year-old buck the weekend we went, and it wasn't rutting.
Wow.
So that's the next weekend I saw 2 3.5-year-old deer, 2 3.5-year-old bucks chasing, but they weren't chasing every doe they saw. It was one specific doe in like a group of 3. So that leads me to believe that the rut was also later up there, and they just weren't interested in, or they hadn't come in the heat yet.
What was that time frame roughly? I'm sorry, I missed that, I think.
The weekend before Thanksgiving was when I went, and the young bucks were chasing.
And it's funny is I was down in Hidalgo County, McAllen area, the valley, first week of December, and they were just starting the rut.
Yeah,
So
and
like a
it
week behind.
moves widely across the state of Texas
Oh,
because
God,
we are
yeah.
so big.
Yeah.
Because we were sitting there, and I was on a managed ranch, but we were watching, like, one morning we got the pleasure of seeing, like, the stud crew, like A-team come through, like all their big breeder bucks, and 2 or 3 of them were just starting to, they weren't chasing them hard, but they were chasing them, and that was, first week of December, so that was really interesting.
Yeah. That's fascinating that it's so I get that's like one of those things that you could get bogged down. I mean, like I feel like we could talk about that for
that's like a big whitetail mystery, right?
What is the day that I have to go hunt? Like what day, is I'm sure a question that I would be willing to bet as an outsider that's one of the questions that you get as a biologist a bunch from somebody just walking up going, okay, what day do I have to hunt to shoot a big buck?
I mean, we just got to tell them what to go check Field and Stream because it has like 5 days you're supposed to hunt every year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you need to do.
Days you must be in the woods.
Days you must be in the woods.
Say, hey,
like I'm just
go read Field and Stream.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm just formulating right now just like what my how am I going to take like basically all of November off, or at least like the middle to end half, depending. Now that we've taken our newly acquired information of, it could shift a little bit.
But if you get a 2-week period, you're going to be pretty dang close.
Yeah. That's the way you got to do it.
2 weeks in the middle of November.
Is you just need to be out there.
Yeah.
Chasing.
Yeah.
So.
God, that's crazy.
Well, and you know what? It lines up perfectly with Cameron and I set up we had a great plan for what we were going to do on Tawakoni this year in the summer, in July and August, and we're like, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it.
It's almost too fresh to talk about.
Yeah, but I'm going to talk about it because it's easier if you just get it out.
Okay.
We put out a camera. We had our stand locations picked out. We had our route in, and
this spot though looked, just prime.
Yeah, it looked very good.
It had everything.
And then we just decided to go another direction altogether when it came time to start hunting.
Well, we were seeing a lot of pigs.
We did see a lot of pigs, and we decided
Not very much deer activity.
Move out another direction.
Yep.
And then we checked the camera that we hadn't been out to since October, and everything that you said right now with rut mirrors
matches exactly
to a T. Mirrors when that camera blew up with bucks. Was the last 2 weeks of November,
and we're not talking like just bucks. Just like mature. There's one on there that's
he's a hoss.
Every bit of 5 years old.
Great mature bucks. All during the day, not all during the daylight, but some during the some of them were during the daylight. Half of them were during the daylight. Some were at night, but just the fact that we had some on day, you could have been in a stand that day and you could have harvested a genuine monster, if you wanted to.
Sounds like y'all should have stuck to your original plan.
Yeah,
we screwed up.
Yeah, no doubt.
Just rub some sand in that one.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, that's what I'm here for.
If you had to give the 2017 deer season a grade.
Yeah.
What would that grade be?
Oh.
I'm hard hitting, man.
This is like pick a word.
We ask the real things.
We
on
ask
this
the real
podcast.
questions, you know.
But then we
and-
continue drinking. We ask the not real things.
Exactly. Then we're like, no, for
What's your
real.
favorite color?
No, for real, dude. Where do you have
But
those
no.
deer tied up at, Chris? I know you've got them tied up out there somewhere.
Boy, everyone asks that question on our draw hunt.
Where are the deer at?
I
I wish I knew.
That was a funny thing you said. You were like, I don't know where any of the deer are at. They're out there.
Is that what he said on the hunt?
Yeah, it was great. That was a good line. You got a good writer,
Yeah,
Chris.
well, people say, where are the deer? I said, well, there's deer in every compartment out there.
Absolutely. You just
And they
need
said,
to
well, where
find.
do you hunt? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm still hunting, so I'm not going to tell you.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely.
No, yeah. I don't hunt here. That's your
Right,
answer.
right.
Yeah. If I were to give it a grade, I'd probably say, B minus or C plus. I mean, we had
That's
some
pretty good.
pretty terrible weather throughout the
Yeah.
season. We started off real poor, got stronger. I'd like to see a strong showing throughout the season
Yeah,
next year.
Yeah.
I can.
Not if we can control that.
We would
at
like
all.
that also.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
If
That'd
somehow,
be nice.
yeah, Chris. As a hunter, I would like my hunting dollars to go to you guys at the Texas Parks and Wildlife controlling the weather a little bit better. You know,
Yeah.
if I could put my comment card in the comment box, it's like, hey, how about it not be 98 degrees in October,
Yeah.
or how about it not be 98 degrees on November 1st
yeah,
either?
well, we
you know?
took our midday break and shot our bows and ate sandwiches shirtless while chugging water.
It was.
Well, hey,
Yeah.
I
2 years
believe it.
ago, Tawakoni was totally flooded, so you could at least you're able to get out there.
That's true.
At least we're consistent, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
This year we were in a drought. 2 years ago we were underwater.
Yep.
In August we were underwater at the old Sabine. So we're fairly consistent.
Yeah. August was underwater. So, as far as I wholeheartedly agree with you from like what we saw deer wise, both on our cameras and just in sits, right? With kind of a B, average of a B hunting season. Moving into next year, how do you kind of see things shaking out? And as I was sitting in a deer stand today, the question came to mind of like, would Tawakoni support some turkeys, and how do we make that happen?
Ooh.
So we have had hunters
They're
send
out
us
there.
pictures of turkeys on Tawakoni.
I sent them to you, Abe.
Did you?
Like 2 weeks ago, I was loading my boat out, and there's a hen was 15
Wait,
yards
you
from
saw it?
15 yards from me.
At the boat
Why
ramp?
did I not know this?
And then there was a Jake over in the tree lines like
right.
bark, 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 bark.
That is so
That's
cool.
right.
I was texting. I was like, so I'm 99% sure we can't shoot turkeys out here, but can someone verify this?
Yeah, I'm 100% certain you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah, you can't.
Don't.
No, and that's
There are a few turkeys out there.
they were very bold. Also,
we get reports of them every year. Thank goodness nobody shot them yet.
Yeah. If I see that nonsense,
But as far as
I'll hold them down and
what
let you
they-
come beat them up, Chris. Don't worry.
Can you call me first?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
As far as making it happen, there's a pretty rigorous, it's not going to happen. There's a very rigorous process to go through to have turkey stocked. At Tawakoni, I would go ahead and assume they were Rios. And as far as I'm aware, NWTF is not in the business of stocking Rios because they're so plentiful in the rest of the state.
Yeah.
Oh, my wife just informed me they are this year.
Oh.
But I don't know anything about that, so we can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to have Miss Chris the Wildlife Biologist on the podcast to talk about turkeys. But we're very interested in getting into the turkey business as well because We chased
I'm gonna
turkeys
talk about
last year, and all
That
we
would
saw
be
was meth heads.
So stinking cool to have
I
turkeys.
can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Maloof has turkeys.
Of course
plenty,
he has.
There's plenty of turkeys around.
I'm just saying.
It's A, finding them, and B, not getting gunfights with meth heads.
Yeah. That's what.
Do you realize where we're hunting?
Yeah.
That was what happened to me last year.
Yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah, it was a fun turkey season, and we're debating on maybe just going down to Whitney for turkeys this year, and we're all putting our name into the Hagerman draw, which I don't know how much of a grandeur that what that'll.
Don't talk about this.
Yeah, we're going to Canada to hunt turkeys. You know, because Trump got
This
elected.
is a good plan. Good
Yeah.
plan.
Right.
Make turkeys great. Make turkeys great again.
Thanks for the
Make turkeys great again. I think we just found the next National Wild Turkey Federation slogan. Make turkeys great again.
I will. I'll pass that on.
I'm sure that's
MTGA hashtag.
exactly.
TGA.
Um,
Oh man.
so-
So, can I ask a question? Get back to this rut thing. We before season, we were getting some deer activity on the cameras. We had some bucks. Nothing crazy. In that 2-week period, you know, we got some good deer. Thing is, Tawakoni is really not terribly big, but somehow or another, those deer managed to not be seen at all, and we're just trying to figure out, like, they've got to go somewhere. They've got to do something. They can't just stay bedded down all the time because of the heat. Like, what do they do when they're not chasing like that? Obviously looking for food, but I mean, they've got to move, you know, more than 50 square yards, you know.
how do they get big?
Well, you notice the dumb ones don't get big.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Deer are a lot smarter than people give them credit for. They're just, I swear, they have a sixth sense. You know, they're moving up and down the river corridor and at Tawakoni there at night. You know, we have people say, "Well, I'm never getting big bucks on my camera at my feeder." It's like, well, they didn't get big by being stupid. They're not going to
Exactly.
show
Yeah.
up for a free meal. They know there's no such thing.
Right.
You know, deer are they're smarter than people give them credit for. But then when the rut rolls around, they are one of the dumbest animals on the planet.
Exactly.
That's
I don't know
Yeah.
if there's anything real that really competes with the low intelligence level of a deer during the rut, a buck during the rut.
Yeah, there's
It's
other
just-
podcasts
it's
that are talking
insane.
about that. They just, I mean, all caution goes to the wind.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's just a free for all.
Yeah.
Like that is their only mission.
I mean, that's when you're going to slip up.
That-
And, like you said, that's when they're going to slip up
we
and
were
mess
all
mess
18.
up. You know.
Well, I mean, you've seen pictures of bucks pre-rut and post-rut, haven't you?
Absolutely.
I mean, they neglect eating and all common sense during the rut,
Yeah.
just to pass on their genetics.
God, that's cool.
So in a very tight window here of what we talk about, so acorns of food. Like, so what I'm going to ask is the food sources for these animals is typically in a northeast Texas setting. It's got to be acorns number one, followed by what?
All sorts of browse. Green briars, great browse. Poison ivy is great browse. Deer will pretty much eat anything. We've all seen deer livers. They're huge. That's to filter out all the toxins. You and I touch poison ivy and break out into a rash.
They eat it.
Deer can straight up eat it.
Yep.
And be fine.
That's crazy.
So,
but I think like there's so much browse out there at Tawakoni. We've talked about this before.
yeah.
You know,
I think this is indicative of any place in East Texas,
yeah,
right?
But there's
outside of a place you've got a feeder set up where you're just trying to knock out a doe, right? But
yeah,
but it's like I don't know that food source is like it's a factor, but you see and hear people talk, oh, I found this big oak tree, or I found an oak thicket. Well, that's like all of Tawakoni, right?
Exactly.
And so
yeah. The key is finding what they prefer.
Yeah.
What they prefer.
Yes.
I prefer.
They have options.
White oak acorns
What tastes
are
good that
preferred
day?
over red oak acorns, just in general. And then the browse. A lot of times, deer just browse opportunistically. They'll be walking through and see something, and I mean, a deer can probably recognize a plant and say, "Oh, I like that." But they're, for the most part, taking bites of a lot of stuff.
As
Just
they wander.
And
sampling.
then they'll eventually learn.
It's pretty much like a Saturday
yeah,
at a
this
Costco. I like that.
Yeah, basically.
I like that. I don't like that.
So will their preferences change throughout the season / the rut? I mean, obviously during the rut they're not eating; they're just freaking out.
But you could get with
are
with
they-
Can I take a guess at this, and then correct me if I'm wrong?
I'm gonna say absolutely.
Absolutely, because like they know when, especially deer up north, when they need carbs produce energy, produces heat, gets them through the winter, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
I would think that's a valid point.
Absolutely.
Is there a difference between what a doe and a buck will eat?
A deer's a deer.
A deer's a deer. Doesn't
Now,
matter.
the does will continue eating during the rut, whereas the buck is just,
Which
focused on one thing.
I like to take the bar mentality, which is if I can get females somewhere, I can get males there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I think we really learned is like Cameron had just said, like you can go find a white oak tree. Like I can look in a book, I can Google a white oak. I can walk through the woods and be like, oh, there's a white oak. But that doesn't mean, to me, that means very little outside of great, you found a white oak. And maybe deer come to that, maybe they don't come to that. Who knows? There's a lot of factors, right? But if you can find that food source mixed with a place that they go to bed at night and get in between that, or at least find a place where they're traveling, how they're utilizing that food source is a way to get into more deer, in my opinion.
I think it's how
Absolutely.
they're utilizing it
Yeah.
because not that they're utilizing it, because you can walk down that main trail and see where they've been picking off greenbrier. That doesn't mean you're going to hunt on the main trail going in, but
Yeah.
it's like how, there's
Yeah.
a reason for it.
I think that's the biggest thing that we've learned this year too, is just when you see sign, what is that sign telling you? How do you extrapolate useful information for going out and harvesting a deer based on what the land is telling you?
Yeah.
That's the type
It's,
of I think that's the type
it's
of
all a function of spending more time in the woods.
absolutely.
Yep.
And there just is zero substitute. I mean, I think people have this idea that you can just go out and do it, right?
Like the
It's
6 foot
just-
tree climber.
The 6-foot tree climber, which I've replaced
And
now
the
with
spot and stock in East
spot and
Texas.
stock. Oh my God, the amount of dudes we ran into this year, Chris, that were just
spot
like,
'em.
I'm just out walking around trying to find a deer.
Find me some
But
deer.
hey, that's one less person that's pushing back where we're at.
Yeah, that's true. But still, my point is not to degrade or bring those people down. It's more just to educate. I can't tell you how many people. There's no one I know who could effectively spot and stalk a deer in East Texas. At Tawakoni, right?
You'd have to be a lot a lot sneakier than me.
I don't even understand how you would do it. I can't imagine.
I mean, I don't. Not just not knowing someone, that there's the line of sight's too small.
You just
for any of it.
Like, you are going to have to
You're
be
not
somebody
getting
who is
30 yards half the time.
You're going to have feet made of drones.
I tried to spot and stalk like 3 mallards today. And I got almost in shooting range. And they were like, "No,
we're out of
that's
here."
cool, man.
Yeah.
We're out."
So that's the biggest thing I see.
Laugh it up, Cameron.
We
I
saw-
Like, I'm thinking of I'm just keeping my
It was
mouth
a
shut
thigh-deep
right now.
marsh on this point, and I had some decoys going. I was like, "Oh my God, they're trimming around this point out here in main water." It's like squish, 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 squish. I'm gonna shoot this fucking duck. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's cool.
All right. And then I'm like,
We'll
"Oh my
go back
God,
and add the
I'm-
beep later."
I'm almost there. And then he looks over his shoulder. He's like, "That's cool, dude." And doesn't even fly. He just swims out to main water. I'm like, man, I felt super good. I spot and stalked
Kicks
a
his
duck.
feet.
Yeah, smart deer and smart ducks.
And it was deep reeds too. Like I was kneeling. Like when I was kneeling, it was like chest deep.
I was across.
Like I was into it.
I was across the
I had nothing
river
else to
and
do.
watching him. I was watching him
Park
walk
Cherokee
over,
or
and I
something.
just expected him just to disappear underneath
Yeah.
grass.
I was trying.
Oh yeah, I've done that. I've seen buddies do that in college. We were out duck hunting one day in college and said, "Hey man, watch out, it gets deep over there." And he's like, "Oh, I'll be fine." And
Squish.
walking along, boom, gone.
Yeah, just gone
Oh man.
and
You
gone.
pop back up, but
Ugh.
it's all fun and games till someone has to ride home in their underwear.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh
where
my
they
God!
Fill the waders up and can't come back up.
No, thank you.
Been
Yeah.
down that road.
Yeah, no, thank you. We had some Ray Roberts this year walking. We were walking out in the middle of the
Oh
night
God.
and just walking out, and I, like, all right, boys, it's this way, and just walk off into basically mid-thigh deep mud. You're like, I'm in it.
No,
I'm
and
in
you came to the point
quicksand.
like this is a problem. This is a problem. This is a problem.
Don't
And,
struggle.
Like,
Don't
Max,
struggle.
like, Max was like squish, like he's hung up. I'm like,
Everybody back
I'm
up.
trying. I was like, all right, we gotta get out of this, and I'm not pulling the dog out of it. I'm trying not to drop f-bombs. Like, come on, Max! Like, you gotta get your ass out, cause
Yeah,
I'm not coming over.
You got to
for
do this.
Oh, it was bad.
Oh,
Duck
man.
hunting has been one of
Yeah.
those things this year.
I've actually put my gun down the back of my waders at Tawakoni before it belly crawled out of a hole
Ugh.
in mud. It was
That's a new
pretty
one.
terrible.
Oh, that's
So,
awful.
I was hunting Lavon 2 years ago, and well,
Oh
maybe
yeah,
it
they'll
was,
do it there too.
maybe it was more. It was when we had the bad drought, and there was one little hole. It was probably 30 by 30 yards worth of water. I threw 3 decoys out. One of them turned upside down because there was like 2 inches of water in the hole,
Yeah.
but there was feathers in there, so I knew they were coming in. And I was like, dang it, I gotta go get it now. So I walk out there. I take one step on the edge of like where it's wet, and I literally sank up to my chest. I was like 2 inches from the top of my waders in mud before the water ever started. Took me like 2 hours to get out of that.
Yeah,
No cell phone, no nothing.
Cameron's a solo hunter as well.
it can be brutal.
I flipped
It
my
can be
kayak
brutal.
for the first time in Tawakoni this year.
so.
I
Nice.
swore to God that thing couldn't flip.
Yeah.
That's never smart's test.
No, I mean I tested it.
Chris,
Like I've
we've-
gotten so squirrely in that thing so many times prior. I'm like yeah, it's a sit in, not a sit on. If people know the difference, kind of like a dugout versus sitting on
Exactly.
top of
Yeah.
a boat. So I've stood up in that thing for 3 and 4 hour increments fishing. No lie. Caught fish. I've reeled fish in. I've set hooks.
Just yank.
No big deal. I gotten squirrely, mind you. Never flipped it.
Yeah.
So when handful of weeks ago, when I first went out to scout Tawakoni, paddling, and text with Dave and everybody else, and kind of took a half day at work. And it's like 9:30, 10 a.m. I'm paddling down this place, and Abe's saying, "You can paddle there?" I was like, "Yeah, it's not deep."
He did the one thing I told him not to do. I was like, "All right, at the fork, don't go right. Whatever you do, it's a dead end.
It looks
don't
fun.
worry about it. Don't go right. I know it looks good. Don't go right." He calls me. He's like, "I went right."
He went right.
I went right.
Yeah.
But I got all the way out to main water. It was flooded up after those rains. So it was fine. Got out there. I'm like, kind of just hung up in the weeds, and I've got my binoculars, and I'm glassing, and I mean, there's birds flying. It was great. And it was just 10:30. I had brought decoys and a gun just in case, but I had no plans of actually using them. Like, they were just there because just in case.
Just
and I
experience
decided
told you to
at
bring
that
those.
point, like, you know what? There's so many birds flying. I'm going to use said decoys and said gun. I see this lone tree. I was like, I'm gonna paddle over there. See if that's waist deep or whatever. Yeah. So paddle over there. I'm very comfortable in my kayak. Paddle up next to this tree, and I take a swipe at it with my left arm, and I miss that damn tree. And I guess the surface tension just caught the edge of my boat with decoys and all this other debris in it. And we took a drink.
Yeah. I feel
Luckily, it was 60 plus degrees. It wasn't cold. Everything was fine. There was a bunch of birds flying, and I mean, that trip sold me on Tawakoni because there were so many birds, and I liked the area. Because I've been a Ray Roberts guy for years.
He means Ray Roberts is where you should go, not Tawakoni. I mean, I feel like as a duck hunter, like you started off this whole duck hunting. Talking to me about duck hunting is like, I was like, "Hey, Austin, teach me about duck hunting." He's like, "All right, what you need to do is lie to every person you know about anything you learn about duck hunting."
No, and I just threw it out loud there on the internet.
No, that sounds about right.
No, yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
like absolutely
When you
true.
find a place, you tell everybody you found some place 20 miles away.
Yeah, where'd you hunt? Like over that way?
We hunted at Fork. Yeah.
There's good duck
I will.
But there's so many spots at Tawakoni.
Ducks I post
Exactly.
on the internet are all private.
Exactly.
The what? Well, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear that.
Any pictures I post of ducks online are all came from private.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, this year I've been duck hunting once in Texas because it's been such a poor year.
Yeah, the birds aren't here. That's what I've been
Yeah,
hearing.
That's 3 years in a row, though.
Yeah, 3 years in a row.
Yeah. Just if you're listening, don't duck hunt. It's not worth your
not
time.
worth it.
It's
Don't
not
do
worth your time. I will tell you this.
Completely discouraged.
Based on
everybody
Take up
that
quail
wants to
hunting
duck
in
hunt.
West Texas.
Exactly. Based on my experience of befriending duck people this year, your best friend as a duck hunter is a deer hunter, because they'll see all the ducks and not go hunt them. Like today,
Oh.
Here we
today
go.
I roll up.
Here we go.
I roll up. I'm like, all right, it's the last day of deer season. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go sit in the stand, and so I pull up to the boat ramp. And lo and behold, no pre planning, no talking about this is what I'm gonna do, what we're gonna do, which is a typical weekend for our crew. I roll up and guess who's unloading his kayak to go duck hunting is Austin, and I roll up and I'm like, man, I hate when people come to my spot, and he just kind of looks up and looks back down.
Him. I look over there's this dude standing right next to me. Like, what is this?
Doesn't
Who
even.
is
What the
this?
hell does this dude
I'm like,
want?
Austin, it's Abe.
And I was like, oh, what's up, dude?
Yeah,
As if you're like just casual buddies.
yeah. So
There's another kid. There's a kid who kayak hunts out there, and I've seen him multiple times. He's friendly. We talk. So I kind of thought it was him, because his truck just barrels up next to the boat ramp. I'm like, oh, it's this kid, because he parks right where you did, and he's fucking throws his kayak out of his truck like, bang, doesn't unload it nicely, doesn't ask for help, which I would. He just throws it in the water, like, sploosh. And he gets in and he hauls ass. So I was like, oh, it's this kid, whatever.
It's a secret.
So I'm getting I'm getting organized, and this dude's sitting next to me. And it's like, oh, it's Abe.
Yeah.
It was great. We all paddled out together.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a great morning.
It makes a journey. It makes that long journey moving back up the river to get to Pawnee Inlet. Enjoyable kayak ride. The buddy he was with though turned around like halfway up and was like, "What's the deal here? Like, how much farther do we have to go?
I'm like,
I didn't
dude, come
plan
on.
on kayaking this far."
But he says that when we hike. He says that when we paddle. I'm
yeah.
like,
Oh, he's one of those.
Where do y'all put in at?
So
On
69
the west side.
it's just around the
goes
lake
to a
somewhere.
road.
Yeah,
There's a
I know
road.
where
There's
y'all
like
are
6
talking
other
about.
roads.
Yeah, up on the north side of the lake. We'll say that.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
really
good place.
not
I've already
that far.
No, it's less than a 2-mile paddle because I mapped on an Onyx.
A decent paddle, though.
No,
Yeah.
it's less
Yeah.
than 2 miles.
And if the wind's blowing, it's really fun.
It's not bad.
Oh.
Well, you're
Oh
going to
my
get
God.
good wind one way and bad no matter
Oh.
which way it's blowing.
It's always.
I
bad
got
wind.
bored late morning, right before it was over, and chased the coots around main water all morning. And I know these other dudes, they're super serious kayak blinds and like nice spreads and expensive decoys were looking at me like,
It was like 11
this
o'clock.
piece of shit. And I'm just scurrying around main water. Bang, bang, bang! Coots. Paddle more. Bang, bang, bang!
Which
Oh,
leads
right.
me to the point. I was at the boat ramp already because I was in a blue kayak with no shotgun and no waders because I was deer hunting. I got back to the boat ramp and our good buddy Gary Miller, the game warden, was there, and we have zero to worry about when we're hanging out with the game warden. We love to talk to Gary. He's good people, and all we hear. I'm sitting there chatting with him, and all we hear is just gunshot after gunshot, and he's just like, somebody is just
Getting it.
murdering it out there. And I could see
That
in
was
his
me.
eyes every single time that the shots would go off, he was just like, 1, 2, all right, that's cool.
He was counting that
He was
plug.
counting shots. He was like,
Yeah.
okay, who's firing what out there?
We checked everybody's guns when we got back to the boat ramp today.
Yeah.
Good.
Absolutely.
I'm glad.
No worries. He said, "Shoot your gun?" I was like, "Yeah, I got 3 or 4 different, kind of shells in there." He's like, "No, I just need 3." I was like, "Oh, you're not checking for steel.
Yeah.
You're checking plugs." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah. Absolutely. Get at it."
I've never met a game warden while duck hunting that didn't check.
Yeah.
Oh, there you're just.
Yeah,
you're gonna-
honestly, I can say
I've hunted with game wardens and they checked me.
Wow.
I can say of every game warden I've ran into at Ray Roberts, not a single one has checked my plug.
Really?
Not one time. This is the first time my plug's ever been checked that was not dove hunting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
God, that's crazy.
That's weird.
I've
Yeah.
always been checked.
That's like the first thing he's like, hunting
Yeah.
license and 3 shells, please. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's just
Wow.
like, oh, yeah, you're good. I think people, if you're doing dumb shit, you're doing dumb shit, and you deserve what you get. Know the rules.
I've never met a game warden I had a problem with. 'Cause I've got my shit buttoned down.
Like
Yeah.
this year.
I always ask them, where should I hunt? And they kind of laugh, and we talk some more. I'm like, someone asks again, where should I hunt?
Yeah. So I know you know where all the good deer are
As
at.
if he's
No, no.
actually going to tell you.
Exactly, but I'm going to ask, by God. Salesman in me.
Well, I went up and I hunted Lake Meredith this year, and I ran into the U.S. Park Rangers, and that was the first time I ever had my driver's license run with
Yeah.
in a situation like that. Most of the time, they just look at your license,
Right.
they look at your hunting license, they look at all your stuff, you're good, and you're all good. This guy was like, "All right, we'll talk to my partner. Do you have any warrants?" I'm like, "What? No,
No?
no, I don't. We're good." It was just I was just like, "Oh, well, okay." And that was I've up to this point I've never been checked by a game warden. This year this was my 4th time. Never had a problem with it.
I don't think I've ever been checked by game warden deer hunting.
Like, I was checked by a game warden this time deer hunting. He was like, because I had picked up shotgun shells along the way, just trying to be that decent human being. He's like, all right, I'm in a kayak.
Thank you.
You know, just
Yeah, no.
there's no reason that these need to just float out there for no reason. You know,
dude, that's like pet peeve number one.
no. Chris, I wanted to talk to you about this as well. Is like I would love to know, and this is a question. I think this is a perfect time. This is a perfect segue, as Steve Ranella will say.
We need good segues.
How does so? A couple dudes who hunt as much as we do, like as an actual steward of the land, how can people who are just normal everyday people be good stewards of the land? How can they, besides just picking up trash? Because I know that just should be a give. If you're throwing trash on the ground, I hate you. Turn my podcast off and don't listen to me because I don't like you.
You are trash.
You are trash.
No lie.
But how can a couple dudes who go out to a piece of private, who do everything by the book, who have a ton of respect for the land, what can they do to give back to that land? Is there anything they can do to help besides what would you say that would be?
The best thing is to buy a hunting and fishing license every year.
Yep.
75% of those dollars go back. 100% of those dollars go back on the land. It's through a match by the federal government where they provide 75%. Texas provides 25%. But buying a hunting and fishing license and then educating yourself and whoever else that might listen on conservation is the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Tons of folks, we have tons of folks accuse us of all sorts of random stuff, and they don't understand what's going on. The best thing is to not listen to what your local, respected elder might say as far as the government and whatnot. But, I mean, we're not out there trying to hurt people and hurt the wildlife. We're trying to do what's best for the wildlife. If we tell you something, it's not because we like to hear ourselves talk. We're actually trying to do what's best for the resource. Buy a hunting and fishing license and become educated.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Unfortunately,
that whole aspect of that right there is something that boggles my mind because I'm generally a person who does not like the government being involved in my business at all. But there's one thing that I feel like the government in America does better than any, and there's
by far
zero
no question
Hands down.
that the government in America
wildlife
does
management
is that.
Yep.
And to me, the fact that somebody would accuse Texas Parks and Wildlife of, like, oh, they're doing this because they don't care. That's like saying that a banker doesn't care about money.
literally.
Are you kidding me?
Lauren and I are going on that.
It happens more than you know.
I mean, I think it's real easy to blame you for people not being successful, and I think that's what that is. That's like I would have to venture a guess that that's the greatest thing.
You did something you weren't supposed to. You probably got a ticket once that has spent a few $100.
Right.
So now you're fighting them, quote, man.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, no.
Now
just
it's
like,
their fault.
Just get your shit together.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty spelled out.
This is my grandpappy's gun. Grandpappy's gun has got
6 rounds in it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's illegal. Don't
Get
do
a
that.
dowel rod from Home Depot.
Man, it's interesting. You know, we get all sorts of folks that are like, well, I heard this on the internet. I read this online. I saw this on a hunting show. It's like, well, that's all well and good. However, that's not the way it works in the real world.
No.
Right.
And the best thing is to get educated on how things actually work in wildlife management. The vast majority of folks, also yourselves included, don't get to hunt on these high fence ranches with breeder bucks and unlimited feed and just about guaranteed success. You need to put in some work and get educated on what's happening on an ecosystem level to help you better understand what the deer are doing at any given time during the year.
And it's a constant
a
learning.
lot of folks, yeah. I mean, every time I go to the woods, I learn something new, and I went to school for this. So it's
no question.
It's a matter of getting out there and observing. not getting online or watching a hunting show. Get out in the woods and actually observe.
Watching a hunting show has no basis in any sort of reality.
No.
And so many people don't understand
None.
that.
But I
None
think
whatsoever.
that's
They don't start filming until there's things to be filmed.
Yeah.
Like, that's why we don't film things.
yep.
Oh, we film things. I
Then we
literally
just
have
never-
a hard drive
Yeah,
full
we have
of B-roll
nothing
from this
to-
year.
Yeah, we got a
Yeah.
whole shitload of
I got a
B-roll.
bunch of Cameron changing outfits in the stand because it was like, oh, it's hot now, so we have to take everything off. Oh, it's cold now. We have to
Hey,
put everything
look,
back on.
Sweat management, okay?
Oh, dude.
Look.
So I think instant
If there
gratification
if
is.
anyone ever made a realistic hunting show, nobody would ever
Exactly.
Nobody
No
would
one. It
ever
would
do
be
it.
the worst show ever.
Absolutely.
It'd be some dude standing there. It would be
Yeah.
some dude sitting in a deer blind looking at his phone.
Me leaning against a tree, drinking an energy drink in the mud.
Yeah.
That was my morning.
Oh,
But I
my
think, like,
goodness.
that's the thing, like we said before, to kind of start this whole thing off, is just like, if your I think the biggest thing that, and this whole podcast and everything we do is, like, our major objective is, like, how can we help people get into the outdoors? How can we help people take a resource that is theirs already, that they have to spend no money outside of whatever gear they want,
They're
And a hunting
uncomfortable
license.
doing it because they don't know what to do.
and how do they go out
Right.
and enjoy that? I think the biggest thing that I could tell them as a point of, like, if you wanted to start somewhere, you need to change and measure what your level of success is. If your level of success is going, well, I'm going to go out on November 15th
Kill a deer.
and kill a deer, you are not. This ain't for you. This ain't for you.
I think how many times did we do that? Like
Every weekend. I mean, like, there's
90
Like
times.
this is the weekend,
like,
boys.
yeah, this is
This
it.
is the weekend.
I feel good. You know, I think just measuring your success is what your idea of success is. We would leave the woods seeing nothing but some sign and be like, all right,
And
we feel like we won.
you know, that's,
We just saw some deer poop in the woods, and we felt like we were
Yeah.
like
Fresh deer poop.
fresh deer poop in the woods. And we were like, oh, look, we're close.
yeah.
We're
They
honing
moved.
in.
But it's
We're
like
sharpening the
taking
edge of this
something
knife, ladies.
Positive away from it, and like that. How do I say this?
I think that's the only way you can measure success if you're a public land deer hunter.
Like we
in
would
this
get
state, at
down
least.
out of the stand, and we'd be like, "Oh, dang! It's 11 o'clock. We haven't seen anything. I don't know about the wind. I don't know about the pressure. I'm hungry. I gotta go to the bathroom. Yeah, let's just get down." And we'd leave, but on our way back, talking every time we would find something positive.
Yeah.
Like to take away from it, and you go back and you kind of see the bigger picture, and it's not like, oh, we didn't just see. It's all a mental
You know,
battle.
a handful of years of public land hunted, mostly duck. Just getting a deer this year with y'all. I can't think of a drive home where it's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
This
Screw
was
this,
it.
this
This
sucks.
was it.
Why
This
did I
was-
pay
this was
$5,000
the-
for this?
This was the deal breaker.
Yeah.
Not once. I'm like, you know what? We screwed this up real bad. But
Yeah.
next time,
Yeah.
by
I got
God,
this.
Yeah.
next time, we're going to kill them. All of them.
We're gonna kill them all.
And then we didn't, but
Right.
but we had a better idea. And I feel like the ideas are going to get better every time.
It was part of that learning
Well, see,
process.
duck hunting, I question all the time why I do this.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm out there this next weekend.
It's masochistic.
It
Yeah,
is.
it's gone back to high school. Me and my buddies, man, why are we even doing this? Oh, this is brutal.
Yeah.
And then the next weekend, it's like, hey, y'all want to go hunting?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're
And there
doing
we
it again,
are.
right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I work in the woods, and I'd much rather be hunting any day than at work. And I've got a pretty cool job.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So, Cameron, did you have a question?
I mean, I've got lots of questions.
He has a notebook.
I have. What rabbit trail do we want to go down? Are we gonna like
I like
transition
rabbits.
or just ask away?
Ask away. I mean, I'm talking for Chris now, but
It's
So,
whatever.
me and Abe. So we've got this piece of private land, and we've been talking about different ways to improve it, and one of the biggest things that I think necessary, because basically how it's laid out is it's a big hay pasture with a few drainages going out into it, and those drainages have got trees and stuff, and the deer run up and down it and whatnot. One of the biggest things I think we could do on that property is a visual barrier, just so it's not just this huge open space where it gives them some reason to transition from this side of the property to the other. And I've been looking at different types of grasses, something like Egyptian wheat, sun hemp, something that grows real fast, and that is fairly inexpensive to plant. What's your opinion on stuff like that?
Y'all own the property?
Yes, we do own it.
I would start looking at some native grasses. Egyptian wheat, that doesn't sound too native to me.
Right.
If you just do a quick Google search of Texas native grasses in your area, there's 2 seed companies I have in mind that would probably pop up. That already sell some mixes, wildlife mix and whatnot. You'd be able to plant something. Might take a little longer to get going, but if you got a disc on it behind a 4-wheeler or a tractor, you could disc it and then go throw some stuff out there, and it'd work.
That's what we want to do, basically. So, I mean, what kind of height constitutes a visual barrier?
4 feet, or 3 or 4 feet, basically.
Okay.
My buddy's ranch, we've got switchgrass planted all over, among other things. Switchgrass really provides the height. It's fast growing. It'll grow 5 feet in a year.
Oh, wow.
But the deer seem to move between that really well. I'm assuming you're looking for stuff for deer.
Yes, absolutely. And it's just general habitat,
Yeah.
What
but
benefits?
Along with that grass, you need to plant some forbs to keep the deer interested. Deer aren't out there eating grass; they're not cows.
Right.
Plant some forbs, stuff like that, and then also some summertime food plots. So,
Iron
quick
clay
Google
peas?
search. Yeah. I mean, there's several different things you could plant. I'd suggest getting a soil test from AgriLife Extension in whatever county that is. I think it's like $10.
Okay.
But the most stressful time for southern deer is during the summer. It's total opposite of northern deer. But give them something to sustain them through the summer, if possible. I mean, there'll be years in Texas where it's just a huge drought and nothing's going to grow, other than native grasses, probably some native forbs. But you can give them a head start, or at least a fighting chance at survival through the summer food plots.
So last year I did some iron clay peas, which is, somebody that doesn't know, it's just cow peas. And they grew awesome. I only did maybe an acre and a half. And they were up, probably the highest ones got up to my butt. I'm 6'3", and they got up to my hip. They were getting browsed on and whatnot, but they grew that tall, and then within about a month, they were browsed down to about 6 inches.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
They hit them hard.
Yeah.
And one of the best things you could do, I don't know how big the piece of property is,
it's
but plant several smaller patches.
So that's
Spread
kind of
'em
what
out.
we
Yeah.
were talking about. We've
Use
got
them
this.
like feeders.
Say what?
Use them like feeders.
Yeah. Well, that's like our big master plan, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But using the visual barriers along with the food plots, and really just get some movement. The problem is, we got a guy that bales hay out there, and so we got to like kind of work around that. So
There's a balance. There's a balance that has to be struck always,
Yeah.
right, Chris?
Absolutely, and you need to get your hay guy sold on native grass hay.
absolutely,
I keep harping on the natives.
Mhm. That
Tell him
makes
it'll be
sense.
3 years before he can bale it. I mean, it's a small sacrifice, but you know what? In the drought of 2021, he'll have hay and nobody else will.
Yep, absolutely.
It seems like a pretty
It's hard to sell folks on that, though.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
especially guys that are just
turning out hay
Real
every
old
year.
If
school.
you convince them on a slow conversion, not
Yeah.
100%, like
I mean,
Dude.
I could go throw some native grass out there, and he doesn't have any clue.
No, I'm saying selling
That's
him
right.
all his hay grass. Like listen, man, like do 20% a year.
Right.
Yeah.
So even
Right.
if a giant drought hits,
Yep.
like Chris said, he's not SOL.
Right.
He's still got something.
Yeah.
But then he's like, oh
It
god,
benefits
like,
him in the long run. You just have to sell it to him that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's the juice is definitely worth the squeeze.
Absolutely.
where's that movie that I always quoted at the Girl Next Door?
Oh, I don't know. I wish I knew that. I just-
I know movies.
I just know that
Old
that's like
movies. I hadn't watched movies
a-
in like a decade.
one of those things that I'm like, oh yeah.
It's funny. Anywho,
So,
we
okay,
did one of our
just
rabbit trails.
just derailed there.
Yeah.
I got another question, if that's okay.
All right.
We kind of talked
Sorry.
about it a little bit earlier. Just talking about how smart deer are. How much do you think deer actually pattern us in our movements in a high traffic area? I think they absolutely do. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, so there have been studies done on this. I believe out of Mississippi State. In fact, my buddy outfitted deer with GPS collars, outfitted humans with GPS, just handhelds. 'Cause,
Yeah.
people don't really like you putting collars on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be a part of a deer study.
but-
Get a collar.
They absolutely catch on and pattern folks. They know to avoid places, stuff like that.
Like how
Yeah,
far
I mean,
would like so? How far are they? Like is there part of that study? Does it determine like based on pressure how far deer move away from a pressured area? So like a trail, for instance, right? Like what kind of distance are we talking about? A deer will divert their travel away from that particular trail. Are we talking? I mean, I know obviously within the range of a deer, but like. What is did they determine kind of what that picture looked like?
So I haven't read the total findings or actually my buddy's thesis. I haven't read it, but if I had to guess, they will alter both distance from an area and also just cover type. I mean, I've seen deer bed down 30 yards from people in some real thick stuff to avoid being seen, and then I've seen deer just hightail out of an area. So
Yeah.
it's probably deer specific, but there is definitely a difference. Like I said, deer are smart.
So basically, they're smart enough to know that, hey, this is thick enough, they can't see me. I'm just going to stay here instead of spending the energy to run a mile away.
That's how fawns survive.
God, it's crazy.
And that's true.
they-
Yeah.
Bed down in the thickest stuff they can find.
Just don't move.
Stay hidden.
Yeah.
So cool.
Well, I mean, it's fascinating to go through a whole year and be in the woods as much as we were, and really kind of put the pen to paper like we did this year, and walk away with. I mean, like I said, we didn't harvest a deer, but we did. We just feel like. I mean, I've never sat at the end of deer season and been more energized for it.
Absolutely.
Going into it,
Like ready for it to warm up and start doing work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
Warm up. I'm not looking forward to snakes, but
a ton.
most definitely. So it was a great year. As far as I will say that it was a B plus on deer harvest, but it was an A plus in just learning stuff. So
I can't believe we're already like saying was.
It's
yeah,
over.
like it's done, man.
Like it's
done
official
right
now. If you're out deer hunting right now,
yeah,
you're
past
doing it-
legal shooting hours real far, my friend.
You're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So what's the year hold for you as far as the Old Sabine River Bottom and Tawakoni? Like, I know you said you were going to go back and you guys were going to plant some more native grasses out there, but kind of what y'all's game plan moving into, or I guess not moving into because it is 2018, but in 2018, what's kind of the?
Well, as far as Tawakoni goes, we're going to continue the native grass planting. We've got some herbicide ready to go out and start killing some of the cedar trees out there that have taken over.
God, I hate cedar trees.
Yeah, preach. Got a burn plan for the small unit of Pawnee Inlet. Pretty much any weather window that pops up before March. I believe March 23rd is our cutoff for that burn. And basically just trying to clean up Tawakoni as best we can. Take a mulcher out there, open it back up in some areas to provide more native grass habitat.
Yeah.
Old Sabine Bottom, hoping to continue the storm damage, clean up from the tornado of 2016, I believe. Have a prescribed burn planned for out there, which is kind of an experimental deal. We've got 57 acres we're looking at burning, just to see what happens.
Yeah.
Basically, that's how I sold it to my boss. If I mess up, it's only 1% of the area of Old Sabine Bottom, so it's not terrible.
It is a nice place out there. I mean, my first time was out there when I went out there, and great trails, just a nice piece of public land to go and be a part of. Even if you're not a hunter, just a kind of cool walk around, very pretty.
That's Sabine?
Old Sabine River Bottom, yeah. I liked it.
Right.
Oh, it's beautiful until the mosquitoes come out.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine. There's no way I could
say that word yet. I'm not ready for that.
I just I lived on my Thermacell for the first 2 months of the deer season.
Really?
Yeah.
I use Thermacell, but they don't. I mean, it's not a problem.
Yeah, but deer smell Thermacell.
Do they?
I promise you.
Can a deer smell a Thermacell?
Sure they do, but you know what? I'll take it.
Yeah, F that. I'm doing it.
There's gives and takes, my friend. There's gives and takes.
Yeah.
I know some people are like, "Oh, you didn't kill a deer because you used Thermacell."
Like,
yeah, I also
cool.
didn't get malaria, so there's that.
Yeah.
We're not in Africa.
Could have been Zika.
I don't bow hunt without one unless it's really cold.
No way.
I felt like I feel like the same
that first
day.
weekend at Pat May's.
I just wore. I powdered myself with that. I was just like, oh my God.
Like
Get
wipe
away.
yourself down with the little cookie things that
Like
come
that
with
stuff you're not supposed to put on your skin. I was just like, F it.
You're like, I'm gonna drink it.
Cancer's got to be easier than this.
Yeah.
It was awful.
I'll tell you what. In grad school, when I was in Georgia, I used 100% DEET. And, I mean, it melted every plastic product I would touch, but totally worth it.
I mean, I can't stand That's the kind of
That's
stuff.
bad when that's worth it.
Yeah, you're like, all right, it melts plastic. Just dab it on my
Just
skin.
Just don't touch it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I use the permethrin or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the good shit.
I'll
Yeah.
burn a hole in you.
Yeah, you spray it on your clothes. You hang them in the garage for a day or two. Then you wear them. Don't wash them for a while. It's supposed to last you 6 washes, but I mean, I'm hunting the same shit all the time. It don't matter.
Yeah.
Hang
Yeah.
it back up in the garage.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That shit is golden.
Yeah. Ugh. Let's not talk
I
about
did that on
mosquitoes.
my work clothes for a very short time, and then I just resigned myself to that. I just use a lot of DEET as opposed to water down some. I believe it was horse permethrin,
Oh my God.
Gosh.
like horse grade permethrin, because it was cheaper than buying the stuff you're supposed to spray on clothes.
Holy
God.
Exactly.
Okay, what about, we said cedar a minute ago. What about using cedar as a cover, like for mosquitoes and stuff?
For mosquitoes, it doesn't work, in my opinion and experience. But as far as a cover scent, it works real well for deer.
Ah.
Hmm.
2 birds with 1 stone.
Well, I've got ideas about this. We'll talk about off podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Some like illicit cedar.
No,
Like-
no.
This is going to kill the big one.
Exactly.
No. Well, we've seen the big one.
Ugh.
I'm happy to help any of you pack out that.
Yeah,
big
we
bastard.
saw the big one at Pat May's, so go up there. You know.
No.
They've got some big
It
deer
was-
at Pat Mays. I've seen some pretty good ones come off of Pat Mays this year.
So
Yeah.
Oh.
We talked to a guy out there on opening weekend who was crushing them.
Yeah. Well, you know, not like ducks, but he wasn't shooting like 15 a day.
So just in general, just as a cool fact, what was the biggest deer you saw harvested this year from anywhere?
From public land.
Yes, from public land,
Yeah.
anywhere.
Sam Houston National Forest.
No way. Really?
Yeah, there was an absolute toad. Man, I'm trying to remember what it scored. It was huge.
God, that's not like a
Sam
that's not a
Houston.
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, that's like little basket bucks down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this one was
Interesting.
like
I did not
16
expect
or
you to say that.
17 points, and I'm trying to think. I don't remember how wide. It was, yeah,
Just
it
a
was.
monster.
That is really cool.
Yeah, it was a toad.
I mean, they got like pine trees down there, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
They're great climbing trees.
Yeah, they do. They're loud.
Yeah.
Down there
Great
all
climbing
the
trees.
time. Next year, I'm taking a stand. I'm in Houston a lot for work.
Dude,
There you go.
it's rough. I used to live down there. It's kind of rough hunting down there. Can be. Just saying.
I can make.
I say you just
Because
climb to the top of Sam
since
Houston.
since I can be down
And
there
just
for
hunt
work
off
all
of
the
that.
time, I can
Do it.
go hunt there.
Do it.
You guys are crazy.
Why?
I think you should hunt off of Sam Houston. Oh, that's not in the National Forest, is it?
No, it's not.
Oh, well, that makes much more sense then.
Huh.
Because
Wonder
I
why
see a
didn't
bunch of
anything
deer
this
there
year.
every time I drive past that thing. It's like
They're
deer
right there.
and a big white statue.
They're like, we're cool here.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna fuck
No one's
with
going to shoot us here. Worst case scenario, we get killed by a convict.
us. Or 18-wheeler.
Or an 18-wheeler, one of the two.
Mostly an 18-wheeler.
Yeah. that's-
Convicts have orange jumpsuits and tentatively
They
no
can't
sharp
see
objects.
orange.
So, on Saturday morning, I stopped at the TA
Good point.
in Rockwall, headed out to go hunt, and a security guard was like, "Oh, are you going hunting?" I'm like, "Yeah." And,
no, I just wear camouflage from head to toe all the time.
he was
it's
like,
cool.
"Where are you going?" And
We are in
super
Texas.
nice guy. I was like, "Oh, I'm going out to Tawakoni. I hunt public." He was like, "Oh, cool, man. Somebody hit just an absolute monster with their car the other day out there." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "All right, guy. Cool. Okay. Everybody always hits a monster anywhere where you're at." So today I was chatting with my buddy Gary Miller, and I had shared some pictures with him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, check out this that got killed like 200 yards from here." And I was like, "Oh my God, he was right." Just like I'm talking like 150-inch deer, just a giant, got hit by a car right off 69.
Wow.
Yeah, I hate
Of course,
that.
now everyone's going to go hunt Tawakoni because you told them.
Hey man.
We're lucky that no one listens to what we have to say.
Yeah, exactly. That's the benefit of Chris of being on a podcast with.
This is the only time
Yeah,
I hope
like-
That
nobody
only like
listens.
our moms and grandmas listen to this, and that's
Chris,
the extent of it.
Chris, we have 3
Love you,
listeners to
Mom.
this podcast, and those 3 people are also the people talking on this podcast.
No, we have 4. Jordan.
Wow.
Oh, Jordan. Yeah, that's right.
Maybe your grandmas are ruthless. They'll shoot a deer out from under you. But
Exactly.
No, they
Her,
probably would.
her bad,
Grandmother.
her bad hips prevent her from getting deep into the woods, though, so we're good.
She's got. You've seen the electric stair climbers? Like
Exactly.
she's got an electric tree climber.
Hey, oh
Yeah,
my
instead
God,
of
that
like
would be
Instead
awesome.
of like the hover round scooters, hers has like tank treads.
Exactly.
Like, brrrr.
She's
Just like follow that
Let's go,
trail back
boys.
to the stand.
Somebody back here on a 4-wheeler.
somebody. Well,
Chris is shaking his head right now.
I know.
He's
He's
just
just
like these.
Yeah.
are
What did I
bunch
sign
of-
up for?
Chris is like,
idiots.
this is the last time I'm coming on this podcast.
These guys.
Well, Chris, we can't tell you enough how much we appreciate you coming with us and sitting down and dealing with us again. And we know that it was dealing with us at best.
We're fun.
I mean, yeah, we're entertaining at least, hopefully.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I mean, it's just like herding cats. So
exactly.
That's exactly what I say
It's
too.
like herding
Funny, I
cats.
haven't heard that before.
Yeah. Like you should try being the person who's trying to at least keep them on track.
You should try
Yeah.
hanging out an hour prior to the podcast. We're trying to get out of our system.
Oh my God.
That's what needs to
That's the
happen.
worst.
It's like
These podcasts are an hour-ish. It's a 4-hour process.
I'm just like, yo.
no, it really is. What time did we show
No,
up?
we were cutting
5.
meat tonight.
we
were
did cut
here
meat
at-
We were
tonight.
cutting meat.
5.
I'm talking, but just a podcast is a 4-hour process.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
Trying to get I'm like, all right, do you realize
Focus,
all this shit
focus,
y'all just talked
focus!
about, you guys have to talk about again, right?
We need
You know?
we need like one of those Cincy things with
Exactly.
ADHD medicine, so it just fills the room.
Vyvanse.
Yeah.
badly. Chris, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming on again.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yep.
We
well, thank you for having me.
hey man, we love it, and I know this is a weird thing to say to another man, but I can't wait to talk to your wife about turkey.
Yeah,
We're super
she's
excited.
the most qualified person I know about that.
We're
so.
super excited to talk to her about that, and maybe we could do a 2-for-1 special and have both of you guys on, and
In person.
you could just
Yeah,
be
we
like,
need to do something in person.
you guys can just share like knowing looks of like, is this what it always like? And you'd be like,
and
yeah,
she's
this is
gonna
kind
look
of
at
like
you
what
like,
it is.
holy shit, what'd you sign me up
Yeah,
for?
exactly. I didn't know you talked to a bunch of
Like,
morons.
what? Yeah, you're using a nice word.
Exactly.
Look, he's laughing like, yeah, I know.
He's
you're
like, no,
right.
that's exactly what she's gonna say.
right.
Like,
You guys
these
aren't going to
idiots.
tag me on
These
Facebook, are
idiots.
you?
You guys are never talking to my wife.
But we appreciate it, my friend, and we super appreciate you coming on. And
Very
I know it's a
much.
late Sunday night, and I appreciate you doing it. A couple bits of tidying up before we go here is that we have hats for sale, stormwatercreek.com, which we appreciate you getting. And there is some more stuff coming soon. We will not disclose what that is, but it is more stuff coming soon. The most important thing we can ask from you is, though, to go to iTunes, click the, as Steve Ranella says, and I love to steal from Steve Ranella because he is hunting Jesus to me.
Nah, man, Remy.
I know. That's
But-
that's a whole other podcast.
But Steve markets himself better.
Yeah. But like you said, if I had to go to
Continue, I
Apocalypse,
apologize.
I would choose Remy. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
he's my
Steve
man
could read
crush.
to me though, and I would be like super
Continue.
smart.
We're getting a
You're
rabbit
right.
trail.
This This is a rabbit trail.
We should have tried to correct this like an hour
No,
ago.
now
Just-
you're rabbit trailing.
Like-
Stop.
Just
Hey,
click the
continue.
farthest right button, the star that's the farthest
Give us a
right.
5-star rating on iTunes or whatever app you use. Set it for automatic
Yeah.
download.
And you can
We dig it.
Just give us a 5-star rating and then leave us a review
Thanks,
that
Mom.
says they're all right.
love you.
Yeah, exactly.
I say that every time.
And then big news.
My mom doesn't listen.
In February, we are going to be doing a podcast, a live podcast with the boys from The Element,
A collab.
a collab. As
It's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be awesome.
we're gonna do.
They're so much more buttoned up than us.
They are so.
And if anybody's there that wants to come out,
We
No,
highly
everyone come
encourage
out.
you to
Like,
come out.
If you come over and say, "Hey, we listen to your podcast," you'll probably end up with a beer in your hand.
Well, boys, the whole point of this is to have the whole crew, like any guest there, to share hunting stories with us,
absolutely.
as well as ask
We have a
questions about public
moderator.
land. We do.
We
have
have
a
some of the
moderator.
BHA guys moderating. We have
Exactly.
an adult.
There's going to be an adult in charge of us.
so like we might stay
which
on
will be
track.
nice. The Element and the guys from
is Chris
BHA are going to
on?
be in charge. Yeah, Chris is still on.
Yeah.
I
He's
was
just
gonna
like,
say.
I'm just.
still on.
All right. I mean,
Just
if
to
you're over
idiots
this, like, you
ramble.
can sign off. Like, we're just kind of rambling now.
So, but we just appreciate it, and we thank you guys for coming and listening to the podcast once again. And
Check us out on Instagram and Facebook and all social media. We try to post cool things. I think we do. We've gotten some.
yeah,
We've gotten some good
we try to take some
Pretty
cool.
good
attention
feedback.
lately. Yeah, tonight we boned out a 25-day dry aged whitetail hindquarter.
Two of them.
One was practiced, one was videoed.
They both turned
I,
out
I,
great.
I think it's gonna be a cool video.
That'll
I
be
think
coming
it
out
will
soon.
be.
Check
and
out
that's
YouTube.
something I haven't seen anything of out there. Is like
In
dry
the,
aging.
I mean, and as someone who hasn't seen it is very familiar with deer. It's gorgeous,
Yeah.
isn't
It's
it?
absolutely
It's
gorgeous. Have you
and
dry aged much,
beautiful.
Chris?
I've hung there 7 or 8 days, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Hung some elk quarters a little longer than that because it took me a while to get through them all. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. We have a refrigerator that's dedicated to.
Yeah, we got a thing.
Yeah. My wife was like, "You can have that refrigerator out there, and just make sure there's no blood in it." And I'm like, "Okay, fair enough." And we hang quarters in there, and we dry age them for either 5 or 25 or however long, and it makes absolutely beautiful meat. Which is kind of a weird thing to say, but
I mean,
nice.
we'll take a bite
So
out of it.
tender. Like we spoke the whole evening of making tartare with it,
Yep.
and by God,
It
I
looks-
still may.
just like tuna.
I'll do it if you do it.
I'm not scared. I'm happy to eat some tartare,
All right, boys.
and that looks delicious. All right, we're rabbit trailing again.
This is exactly how it happens, and somebody has to be in charge, and I'm going to be it.
I
So,
think we did a little
Chris,
better.
we can't thank you enough for being on
Thanks,
again.
Chris.
Yep.
Thank you guys
Super
for
informative.
listening to
Always
us.
fun.
Always fun. Thank you guys for listening to us. February, keep an eye out on Instagram. Keep an eye out on the podcast. There will be a date. We highly recommend you come to our live podcast. There will be a location to follow soon. And come ask questions. We really want you to talk about sharing stories. So if you've ever just wanted to be like, hey, I'd like to be on a podcast.
This is your chance.
I hunt deers. I chase deers.
Catching deers.
I catch deers. Then this is it. Thank you very much, Chris.
Well,
talk
thank
to you
y'all
soon.
for having me.
Yes, sir. As always. All right, guys. Peace.
Later.